to enable all of us to push further our decarbonization efforts. Let me therefore take this opportunity to once again express my deepest appreciation to you all, and in particular to our partner institutions and organizations for their technical and financial support in the development of the EV policy. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the thematic focus for today's event is in two folds. One, the future of our road transport, and two, green shipping. Since the Paris Agreement, decarbonization has become a growing agenda item for many countries, and Ghana is no exception. Limiting temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius requires a total global emission reduction of about 45% by the year 2030 and 100% by the year 2050. It is therefore critical that we take immediate steps to shift away from technologies that burn fossil fuels in a manner that is well coordinated and inclusive. Each sector needs to undergo a shift to support the other sectors, as these systems are highly interdependent. Therefore, as we put forward for the decarbonization of transport, our focus is not only on road transport vehicles, but also on shipping and logistics value chain. Ghana is now a member of a global community that is committed to achieving zero emission from medium to heavy-duty vehicles, and this ultimately has implications for the logistics value chain. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as you may be aware, a good chunk of the shipping business relies on the round-the-clock movement of freight and materials. Almost zero activities happens during a storm for the shipping industry. Hence, a dip or a drop in productivity. Freight and infrastructure inundated by storm surges can drastically cut down on the operations of many port facilities. Even after the storm has died down, flooding can continually disable port operations. According to the United Nations Climate Change Report, the year 2022, ports around the world stand to suffer billions of dollars in losses of greenhouse gases emission if we allow it to continue to grow. Extreme weather, flooding and rising sea levels can damage vital seaport infrastructure, disrupt global supply lines. To run it up without a coordinated approach and the commitment of all stakeholders, the impact of climate change on global shipping and logistics system would not be good for us. Decarbonization is therefore the most important strategy to limit the harm from climate change. Fortunately, decarbonization comes with major benefit behind environmental protection-related risk management, health and value creation, and opportunities. Let me conclude with three key points. One, we have to reduce our dependency on fossil fuels. Two, we have to promote and accelerate the uptake of renewable energy and shift energy demand away from the combustion of fossil fuels. And three, we must reduce carbon footprint. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, with these remarks, it is my singular honor and privilege to open this side event. Let us leave here very well informed and above all, motivated to drive Ghana's decarbonization agenda forward. Thank you very much, and may God bless us all.
We can do it better for the Honorable Minister, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give him a resounding round of applause. That's the affable, indefatigable, and hardworking Honorable Isiama. Indeed, he traveled all the way from Saudi Arabia this dawn and got into Dubai. He couldn't take a nap. He decided to head here straight. And so it tells you that it's a trait of a great man who is hardworking and has the heart, Ghana, in his heart. Let's give it up for him once again. At this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, we shall be having a presentation, and this presentation's focus will be the highlights of Ghana's e-vehicle policy, which was launched on Saturday, the 2nd of this month, by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, right here in this room. And so we would have no other to give us this particular presentation but our own Director, Planning, Policy, Monitoring and Evaluation at the Ministry for Transport, the Honorable, should I add it? All right, Mrs. Irene Mesiba, to do us the honors of this presentation. Let's give it up for her, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Mona. How many minutes do I have? I understand I have to present the policy in about 10 minutes, right? Yeah, I have several slides, but I'll try and do that. And like Mona said, and my minister also mentioned, the policy was launched in this very room about 3 or 4 days ago by His Excellency, the President. And we shared copies of the policy. Some got, some didn't get. But we have the QR code at the back. So if you want the soft copy after the event, you can pick up the QR code. We've run copies of the policies that we brought. So when we go back home, we'll still share the hard copies. But if you want a soft, please kindly get it at the back. Yeah, so I'm going to try and let you understand the policy in 10 minutes. It's about 38-page document, but in 10 minutes, I'll quickly go through the highlights of the policy. So this is just by way of introduction. The population of Ghana, currently we are about 30.8 million, and also the vehicular population is 3.2 from DVLA. This is by fuel type. I'm talking about this pie chart. For diesel vehicles, we have 27.5. For LPG, I should use this. Okay. For LPG, we have 0.1, and electric 0.02. And if we look at petrol, we have 72.2%. And when we look at the modal splits for transport, trotro is 46.9, bus 10.1, and also car and taxi 42.9%, and railway 0.1. So this is about a bit of background about the transportation system in Ghana. And we all know the development issues: congestion, air pollution, accidents on our road, fossil fuel dependence, noise pollution, and also greenhouse gases. So when we look at the policy, what is our vision? Our vision is sustainable adoption and utilization of safe and affordable electric vehicles to reduce emissions and improve well-being of the populace. And for the goal of the policy, create an enabling environment for the uptake of electric vehicles to reduce emissions, promote a cleaner environment, and improve the well-being of the citizenry. So this is the vision and the goal of the electric vehicle policy. And we have 8 key objectives in the policy. The first is to promote sustainable demand for electric vehicles. And the second, support the development of the supply chain for electric vehicles. The third is to make Ghana the hub for the supply of lithium batteries. And the fourth is ensure reliable and adequate supply of electricity for charging electric vehicles. And then the fifth is provide a regulatory framework for the electric vehicle ecosystem and development of charging infrastructure. And also the sixth, develop human capital for electric vehicles value chain. 7, support research to provide relevant data to inform decision making. And then the last is to ensure proper management of waste associated with the deployment of electric vehicles. And what are the core values and principles? Health and safety in the use of electric vehicles. Yes, we know that people are concerned about the safety and also the health issues around the batteries. And we also said that there should be equity and fairness in providing incentives. We know that in this business, there will be some incentives. Even in the 2024 budget, the Minister for Finance announced some incentives for the electric vehicles. I'll come to that later. And also circular economy principles and practice, that is reuse and recycling. And the last is inclusivity. Nobody should be left out. Everybody should come along. So for the objective one, I'll just quickly go through some few strategies that we have come up with. That is promote sustainable demand for electric vehicles. We have a few strategies. Provide public education and awareness to ensure nationally consistent information on the benefits and realities of driving electric vehicles in Ghana. Even going around the country in developing this policy, we realize that there should be a lot of education. People are asking, so does the vehicle shock? When we drive in water, when it's raining, will it shock us? You know, a lot of questions is being asked. So before we can take off, we need to do aggressive public education on the electric vehicles. So that is our number one assignment. And come January, we'll hit the ground running with the public education and awareness. Also implement incentives, both monetary and non-monetary, to ensure penetration of electric vehicles. So in the 2024 budget, it's been announced that import duties on electric vehicles have been waived for public transportation, not private, for public transportation. So once you tell us that you are coming to use your vehicle for public transportation, and DVLA will be at the port to register you immediately. Because you know how we do it in Ghana. Someone will say public. Meanwhile, they are going to use it as private. So if it's for public, we register you immediately. You get the yellow plate. Because the waiver is for public transportation, not private. And that is for 8 years. For 8 years, we want to promote mass transportation. So we are giving waiver for public, for buses, or for transport that is coming into the country for public transportation. That we will waive the VAT. And also facilitate access to green financing for commercial vehicles. ECOBANK is sitting right in my face. He will serve on the panel. We know that they are going to make that available to us. So he will tell us when it's his turn. And we also want to promote public sector procurement of electric vehicles. Government needs to show the way. And we have advised that ministries going forward, if you want to buy vehicles, if you are buying 10, 4 should be electric, because we need to show the way for others to follow. And very soon, my minister is going to drive an electric car to show the way that we all need to be in electric vehicles. So for objective 2, the strategy is to support local production of electric vehicles in Ghana. Still in the 2024 budget statement, there is provision for the locally assembling firms. So if they are also bringing in vehicles, there is some incentives for them, because we need them to also start assembling the electric vehicles in Ghana. So some waivers have been given to them. And we also ensure that companies dealing in electric vehicles provide after-sales service. That is very critical for us. We can't bring in vehicles and then we cannot get after-sales service. Somebody asked me yesterday that, do I know where they can service, or if their electric vehicle develops a fault, where they can take it to. And I said, no, I'm not sure. So probably when we go back to Ghana, we need to go and look, because there are some electric vehicles in town, but some of them are asking, where would they go for servicing and all of those things? I said, solar taxi. Oh, okay, solar taxi. After, let's talk. So people are asking. Also, we have to ensure the availability of genuine spare parts for electric vehicles in Ghana. And the objective 3 is to make Ghana the hub for the supply of lithium batteries. We all know that we have discovered lithium ion in Ghana, and also this time around, we think we need to produce the batteries in Ghana. So some of the strategies is to accelerate the implementation of the lithium ion component of the green mineral policy, facilitate the establishment of lithium mining and processing in Ghana, leverage the availability of lithium to establish battery production in Ghana to meet local demand and also for export. And finally, ensure local content and local participation in lithium ion production and marketing. Ensure a reliable and adequate supply of electricity for charging electric vehicles. These are some of the strategies: accelerate the implementation of the Renewable Energy Master Plan, promotes installation of solar systems in public buildings for charging, also promotes installation of solar in homes, and also we need to review the building codes to include provision for electric vehicle charging facilities. We are all aware that some people can charge their vehicles in their homes. What kind of connections do we have? So I don't know if Ministry of Works and Housing is here today. We've met with them. We need to review our building codes to include that. We also need fire service to come and check where are we installing these facilities. We shouldn't take it for granted, because the fire from the electric vehicle, we learned, is not easy. So we also need fire service to do that. And for the objective 5, ensure the existence of relevant regulatory framework for the electric vehicle ecosystem and development of charging infrastructure. We know that some regulations will definitely be enacted and some needs to be reviewed. So we'll review the existing relevant laws to accommodate the electric vehicle ecosystem. We'll develop standards and regulations for the electric vehicle ecosystem. That's DVLA, and then the Ghana Standard Authority, they've started a conversation on that. We know there are some vehicles in the country, but what standards? So they are going to come up with standards so we don't get anything coming in. Whatever everybody is using now, we have not given standards. So we are coming up very quickly with the standards so that we will regulate what comes in. For the development of standards for charging infrastructure, Energy Commission, they have that. So before you set up a charging station, you go to Energy Commission for permits, and then they'll give you the standards. So DVLA very soon will come up with the standards so that people will know what kind of vehicles they are assembling and what they are bringing into the country. We'll also promote the provision of charging infrastructure at transport terminals and depot. Currently, we can only count 7. And the 7 we are counting is all in Accra. So if you bring in a bus and you are going to Kumasi, what happens? So we also want to encourage charging infrastructure along the highways and also in some other cities. And let me jump to for objective 6, develop human capital for the electric vehicle supply chain. We want to promote support for secondary and tertiary institutions to run programs to train students for electric vehicles, provide training for auto mechanics, provide training for persons with disability, provide training programs for staff standards, the security agencies, DVLA, all others, provide public education for dealers of spare parts to be able to handle spare parts for electric vehicles. We want to intensify training because everybody has to be trained and retrained. DVLA will undergo training. The police also said they need to undergo training so that when they arrest you, they know what car they are dealing with. So everybody has to be trained and retrained. And also our auto mechanics, that we have also started a conversation with TVET. They are our biggest problem because we know that some people will retrofit. And we can foresee most Ghanaians retrofitting their vehicles. So we are going to come up with standards for retrofitting and also license some garages and some auto mechanics in doing that. Already retrofitting is going on. We know it. And if you go and you take your car to some small corner and they retrofit for you and it burns, please don't blame us. So we will come up with registered and certified firms that we will retrofit. Because if you buy your brand new car today and you have to convert to EV, I'm sure you will prefer to retrofit rather than buy a new one. So we can foresee many people retrofitting. I even understand that the tools for the EV, they are completely different. Rana Motors, they have now signed MOU with Korea to receive their tools. So it means that people have to be retrained all over again. And we don't want to leave anybody out. And we want everybody to get the full training so that we don't get it wrong and transport will be blamed. So like we do it, we always want the wayside mechanics. For the EV, please, let's not go to the wayside mechanics. There may be trouble for us. So we are going to enforce on that if you want to retrofit, go to the certified vendors and retrofit. I understand I have to be wrapping up. So we'll support research and development. We will also, for Objective 8, ensure proper management of waste associated with deployment of electric vehicles. I'm going to jump the implementation framework because in this assignment, we are going to collaborate with many ministries. We are not going to go alone. So I want to move to the transition phase. For the transition phase, if you are not going to take anything away, you need to know this, the national roadmap. Phase 1, 2024 to 2026. What are we going to do? That is preparation to take off. 2027 to 2035, that is the promotion phase. That is our target, is to penetrate the market by 35%. And phase 3, 2036 to 2045, that is we are phasing out and the penetration rate should be 70. As per the energy transition plan, by 2070, there shouldn't be a single ICE on our roads. By then, I would have retired anyway. So 2070, we would have phased out all the ICEs. So with the 2024, we'll establish a climate change unit that will take care of all the things that I have said at the ministry. They will also undergo training and they are going to implement together with other institutions all of these activities, establishing the regulatory framework. So the preparation to take off 2024 to 2026 is going to be about awareness creations, it's going to be about review of regulations, development of standards. We are going to put all the protocols in place. So for the next 3 years, this is what we are going to do. And then 2027, we take off fully. When we talk about the EV, some people think that it's tomorrow we are starting. No, it's not tomorrow. We'll make haste slowly. So this is the plan. 2027 to 2035 is the promotion phase. And as I said, we phase out gradually, and by 2027, we will be done. So to conclude, to provide an enabling environment for the uptake of the EVs, we need a strong and robust policy and intersectoral collaboration. We can't do it alone. So many people are involved, and we'll also have to collaborate with our development partners And to top it up, we need the political will. And we can see the political will because my minister is here and the president himself launched the policy. So on this note, I want to bring my presentation to a close. Thank you very much.
We can do better for Madam Metsiba, ladies and gentlemen, Director, Policy Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation at the Ministry of Transport. Indeed, it takes a dynamic, hard-working, and quintessential minister backed by a solid team of technocrats to put together such a comprehensive document, setting the tone for Ghana's preparedness to migrate to the e-vehicle arena. Thank you very much, Madam, for that lucid presentation. We are grateful to you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are zooming into the panel discussion for now. One of our panelists, unfortunately, has left us. That is in the person of Dr. Daniel Benefo, who is the Acting Director, Climate Change at the Environmental Protection Agency. He was supposed to join us, but for time constraints, he has decided to beg leave of us. And I'm sure that probably some other forum will get him to share his thoughts with us, what he would have told us here. And so let me invite to take a seat my own brother, Mr. Abraham Zato, Deputy Director at the Driver and Vehicle Licensing Authority. And let's give it up for him. Young and energetic. Thank you very much, Mr. Zato. And also joining Mr. Zato will be Mr. Kingsley Addo, who is head of SMEs, ECOBANK Ghana, who's also here. Madam said, indeed, they would be supporting as far as financing is concerned. And let's see how it goes, what good news he has for us. Ladies and gentlemen, this particular session or segment will explore national experiences in mitigation actions and financing, focusing on collaborative efforts to implement recommendations. And the discussion will cover challenges, opportunities, and experiences, in advancing decarbonization of land-based transport. And so these are the two gentlemen we'll be having a discussion with this moment. We're taking a look at the future of road transport in our beloved country, Ghana. So without much ado, I would begin with Mr. Zato. In Ghana, even when you are sitting in your own car and it is, rolled up, the air is smooth, chilly and all that, you still see fumes emanating from exhausts of vehicles. And you can literally see some of the vehicles, how rickety they are, how torn they are. And people keep asking, do these cars really have roadworthy certificates and all that? And so we want to find out from you how the DVLA is being positioned to take, to ensure that the roadworthiness of vehicles and to minimize their impact on the environment as far as this particular whole, this whole climate change thing is concerned. Tell us, the roads that the cars that we see on our roads, emitting these fumes and all that, are they really roadworthy?
Well, thank you very much. And first of all, let me give my respects to the Honorable Minister and the entire ministry for leading us all to launch the National Electric Vehicle Policy. I think if you look into some of the provisions in that policy, it goes a long way to address some of the challenges that we are experiencing in the road transport sector. And one of which, as you mentioned, is the area around emissions, roadworthiness, and ensuring that the vehicles plying our roads are safe. And in fact, if you look into the establishment of DVLA itself, our own act makes provision for us to ensure that the vehicles plying our roads are safe and meets the environmental standards and requirements that we all have. The question about whether or not the vehicles plying our roads are safe, I think is a national one. DVLA's own policies and procedures provide that if you are driving a private vehicle, you undergo the roadworthy test once a year. And if you're driving a commercial vehicle, you go through it twice a year. These testing regimes are supposed to ensure that at any given point in time, that the vehicles we certify and pass meet the testing standards. And over the years, consistently, we have sought to introduce technology. Technology in the sense that if you're in Accra and most other cities across the country, you see us partnering with the private sector. in establishing the private vehicle testing centers. The idea is to take the roadworthiness testing regime beyond just the mechanics of the physical look, but subjecting the entire vehicle to a computer-based test, so that when we go through the test for brake testing, for lights and the tires and every other operational mechanism within the vehicle, and we certify that this vehicle is roadworthy, there isn't any other way of refuting the certification that the licensing authority has made provision for. The other aspect of it is for us to all, accept what the standards will be, Most of the time, you have to balance the equation between implementing a very strict and stringent roadworthiness regime and looking at economic factors. So most of the time, if you go out to some other areas, this question comes up. We all see the circle to Kaneshi, what we call the space buses, etc.
The Choco and all that.
Excellent. And so this is why I made a point earlier that the electric vehicle policy is one that is forward-looking and addresses some of these concerns. But I think also that the introduction of technology, the partnerships that we are establishing with the private sector, and DVLA itself, moving forward, if you look right now, we're implementing a system where vehicle registration is being automated, such that the standards we collectively agree to implement as a country, right from the port downstream, implementing these projects is not based on human decision, but the fact that the system will accept or reject a vehicle based on what we all have agreed to implement. And so these are some of the things that we're looking into. And then, of course, the data that will inform policy formulation. If you look into the roadworthy data right now, we are able to say, okay, what kind of vehicles are we testing? For example, are we testing minibuses? Are we testing saloon cars? What is the gross vehicle weight of the vehicles we are testing? What kind of challenges are we facing? So, for example, if you look into the failures, brake failures, headlamp failures, tire failures, then you can drill down the data again and say, what kind of vehicles are we experiencing brake failures in? What kind of vehicles are we experiencing high emission rates? Then we can advise the ministry and our stakeholders to say that, look, based on the data we are seeing, the analytics that we are drawing, the insights we are drawing into this data, this is where we think as a ministry, as a government, we should begin heading towards in addressing the challenges that we are having in our country.
All right, so my next question was going to be on challenges. You just mentioned some of the challenges. Are they the only challenges you face? Because sometimes you have people who try to be intransigent. You want to get them to do the right thing, that when the date is due for renewal or they are roadworthy, they find it difficult. And sometimes they get apprehended by the police and all that. And I must confess that the police are doing a great job when it comes to that particular aspect, perhaps for obvious reasons. But the DVLA is not able to fish out these people to force them to do the right thing. Tell us more of the challenges that you encounter in your quest to get vehicles to do the right thing, or vehicle owners to do the right thing.
Well, thank you very much. I think one of the things that we agree to do as an institution is to inject technology in everything we do. And this has to be based and supported by research and data. So enforcement and compliance should be taken beyond the physical mechanics of stopping the vehicle and checking and allowing the human being standing there to make a decision without recourse to data. Which is why what we're trying to do with our enforcement and compliance unit, in collaboration with Ghana Police Service, the Ministry, National Road Safety Authority, etc., is to ensure that we take that decision-making away from the human being that is just standing there, but that whatever the person is seeing has to be based on what is in the database. So if I stop your vehicle right now, I don't have to make a decision based on what I'm seeing alone. But what is in the database has to match what I'm seeing. If there are any disparities, the responsibility is on me as the enforcement officer to make a decision, because the system knows that I have seen a vehicle that is non-compliant with what is in the database. And so then you have no choice than to make the right decision. The second part of it is, if you look into the distribution of vehicles we have in our country, in Ghana, for example, we receive vehicles from the European side, we receive vehicles from the Asian side, we receive vehicles from the American side. All these vehicles have differences in standards, in technology, and in the type of artificial intelligence that is built into these vehicles. And so it becomes a huge challenge if we have to use one standard to certify all these vehicles based on roadworthiness, safety, security, etc. And so then we have to look back to the ministry to say, look, how do we enforce road safety, roadworthy standards across these categories of vehicles, ensuring that every vehicle that is operating on our roads meets the optimal standards of safety and security. The second part of it is to say, for example, when we look at emissions. Emissions, again, we have those vehicles, and one of the data points that Madam Irene shared, that we have a lot of vehicles, 80% plus of our vehicle distribution are used vehicles. Some of them as old as 20 years, 10 years, which is good policy. Why we think that the ministry and government is introducing these penalty points for overaged vehicles. So if we have vehicles distributed across this broad spectrum, then it means that we're having a challenge with the level of emissions that we as a country are willing to permit over the implementation period, which is why the last time in our consultative sessions with the ministry, we made a point that for the first 2 to 3 years, the emission testing data has to be mainly advisory, such that that data then becomes the basis for further public policy and consultations. Then we can start strict enforcement in terms of fines, in terms of jails or whatever the laws provide for. And then we are beginning to make progress. Then there's that general acceptability of the fact that we have to be safety conscious. And in Ghana, most of the time when you attempt to implement the law, then people invoke this thing that, we are all finding something to do. Everybody, this is your brother, this is your sister. But this is where, again, that national acceptance of the value of a statistical life comes in. How do we value safety in Ghana? How much premium do we place on safety and security, clean environment, sustainable mobility? Which is why we think that we have to continue public sensitization, we have to continue public education, and as a collective, that we agree that this is the direction as pointed by the ministry, and then we all follow suit.
Awesome. I'll be coming back to you with the last question, which has to do with the innovations that you have put in place to ensure, inspection and registration is smooth and all that. You mentioned technology. That's something you can't take out of the equation. But let me come to Mr. Ado, and then find out from you. ECOBANK Ghana is one of the banks that has been noted for supporting SMEs in our country. Recently, I had the opportunity of representing the DG of GPHA at the Volta Trade and Investment Fair in Ho, and one bank sent a representative who indicated, she was explicit in her pronouncements, that they are offering up to 10%, as lending rate. And when the AGI came up, the president said he bemoaned the high cost of lending, citing 30%, 35%, sometimes 40%. Now, you are into SMEs. You are head of SMEs at ECOBANK Ghana. I just want to find out from you what your experience have been since you started this particular journey and how it has been.
Thank you, and good afternoon. I was going to say His Excellency, but Honorable and everyone gathered here. It's a fact, when we talk about the cost of financing relative to the SMEs, it's always been an issue of a risk and reward discussion, where globally, SMEs are perceived as risky, right? And so the price point at which they are served seems to be on the higher end of the risk premium. However, at ECOBANK, we look at that differently from a three-pronged perspective, okay? So today, when we engage an SME, we are looking at the SME from the point of how are we able to capacitate that SME to deliver on the business model or the entrepreneurial drive that they want to pursue. We would want to move on from that to also explore how best we can support them in developing their markets and creating enough and deepening that access to market for them. On that, there are various initiatives that we've driven and we are still at work at, given our footprints across Africa. We've been quite instrumental in driving the actions and implementations of the outcomes from after. Okay, we've rolled out the single market hub to help SMEs in Ghana and across the region trade amongst themselves. We do these two to help develop demand, to help develop capacity, and these two together can help direct that perception that we have of the SME. Beyond that, then you can move into finance, right? Because you've created that enabling environment to put money into the ventures and the businesses that these SMEs are into to achieve the outcomes. It's a two-way approach. We as a bank need to return on that investment. They as private sector need to return on the investment that they're doing. We also concede that because that journey, given the perception of risks, is quite intense, we will not be able to go alone. So what we do is we collaborate with other partners, being it national or international partners within the financial space or within even the technology and philanthropy space to see how best we avail affordable financing to these SMEs in their investments or in their investment journey. So in the nutshell, yes, they are risky, but there are ways to de-risking that. And through that journey, we then are able to bring the cost of funding down, irrespective of the difficult macro environments which confronts all of us. Thank you.
You have enjoyed your roller coaster journey in terms of financing SMEs in Ghana, and the future looks bright for this particular sector. But you didn't share with us, or you want to share with us? You know what I'm going to ask? You know. All right. So what's your rate, your lending rate to SMEs in Ghana?
Yeah. So lending rates, generally, we all align to what we call the Ghana reference rates, which today it serves as like the base rate that all banks respond to. On top of that is what we refer to as the risk premium. That ranges between 1% to about 12% for the SMEs. So depending on the business you are investing in. But our average risk premium for SMEs at ECOBANK is around 5 to 6% on top of the reference rate. However, again, as I indicated, given collaborations that we avail ourselves to, there are some sectors and some transactions that are able to enjoy lower rates depending on their developmental outcomes as one, or depending on the impact that one seeks to make within that sector. Example, like the agri sector. Today, given the collaborations with other state institutions like the Development Bank, Outgrower Value Chain Fund, or even international institutions like the USAID, POPACO, and the World Bank, you can get an agri-financing of between 12.5% to about 20%. Again, if you are focusing on ESGs and driving them with its impacts or mainstreaming them in your business, and you are, for instance, a woman-led business, we have initiatives in place that enables you to have 1 to 2 steps down on the general interest rate relative to the risk premiums given to SMEs. So there are options and there are opportunities available within the interest rate conundrum. But I wouldn't say, as an SME, worry so much at the rate or the cost of financing to deter you from taking up the venture. Pick up the dream, engage the banks that support the sector that you are focused on, and explore the opportunities available to make that journey happen.
Yeah. Okay, so the exigencies. I've seen a certain fora, brilliant presentations from officials of ECOBANK in your quest to support this whole phenomenon to stem the tide of climate change. I just want to find out from you how the bank is being positioned to support, as it were, the development of climate resilient infrastructure. as we zoom into the vehicle, policy era, as Madam, showcased during her presentation, what are some of the investments we'll be making to ensure that we actually meet this goal?
Okay, so I'll take it, maybe I'll take all of us back because we are speaking about the transport sector. I'd say somewhere around 3 to 4 years ago, we had the Ministry of Transport, okay, approach us on a project, and which today has led to one of the developments that we've seen, the e-mobility, electric vehicle policy.
Right.
The ministry had a drive to ensure they decarbonize, okay, the environment through electric buses. And being an accredited entity of the Green Climate Fund, we are approached to help develop and secure funding from the Green Climate Funds to make that investment happen.
Right.
But missing within that concept or proposal where that enabling environment that would enable such a venture to be a commercially viable one. And so today, taking care of those gaps that were identified now enables the private sector to invest them more in. And that is where, again, we come in.
Right.
How best do we source for diverse funding to enable this journey happen? When Irene was making the presentation, it saddened my heart to see about 85%, right, of the vehicles in Ghana being used vehicles. What I see there is risks. Why? Because as a bank, we equally have invested in that number.
Right.
We finance both the private and the public transport to deploy these vehicles on our roads. So indirectly, we are contributing to the emissions or the pollutions that is happening.
Right.
How do we accelerate these ESG outcomes, mainstream into our financing to ensure we bring down these numbers? So it is a mandate, it is a burden we feel. And we are positioned to assist by sourcing from, for instance, the Green Climate Fund, very low concessional rates to help achieve this development. On our own balance sheet, we are working with a company, I think it was mentioned here, Solar Harvest, Solar Taxi, to see how best they collaborate with a public transport entity, the state transport company, STC, to roll out some buses as a first step in testing this policy. And that would then enable us develop other bigger pools of funding to scale up the adoption of e-mobility or e-vehicles across the country.
Right.
So for us, apart from our own balance sheet, we see blended financing as a tool too. I know Benefo is not here, but he could have helped by, again, exposing us to what value, innovative value, for instance, carbon credits could have brought to this journey or will bring to this journey. One of the gaps is, at the end of the day, how do we measure the outcomes, the emissions that we want to reduce? Today, there's an office in Ghana that is able to validate and measure, and to the extent of trading these carbon emissions. That in itself comes into the risks and assures the cash flows around these businesses that will be investing, being it for solar charging system infrastructure, being it for electric vehicle infrastructure, being it for even the development of lithium batteries. At the end of the day, if these outcomes can't be traded, they come in to improve the cash flows around the commercially viable businesses that we'll be supporting. And so that is where we see our support going into.
Awesome. Thank you very much indeed. Let me take the final one from Mr. Zato, and then we shall wrap up with this segment and then come in with the next session, the next discussants. I just want to find out from you, like I said, when I was moving on to Mr. Ado, what innovations the DVLA has put in place to ensure, enhanced and improved renewal and testing of vehicles, particularly having witnessed the launch of Ghana's e-vehicle policy.
Well, thank you very much. One of the things we've started looking into is in the area of developing the standards. We have to ensure that these vehicles coming in meet a certain minimum standard. And then the standard also has to do with the testing regime. Because a clear example is the area that Madam mentioned earlier on about servicing these vehicles. And so if the vehicles must be serviced, and the licensing authority has the mandate to ensure that these vehicles meet the minimum basic roadworthy standards, then we have to have the standards that will govern the testing regime.
Yes.
The other thing we have to work on, which is already in progress, is looking at equipment modernization. The current roadworthy testing regime does not have sufficient capacity to provide for the safety needs within this EV space. And so we're looking into further partnerships, and it's great that partners like ECOBANK and the rest are here, so that our partners in the private vehicle testing regime can approach some of these financiers and take advantage of the provisions in there to modernize their equipment, to take advantage of this policy, for example, so that when we reach the 35%, 40%, 50%, then we can also ensure that these vehicles meet the minimum safety standards. The other side that, again, beyond just the electric vehicles, the licensing authority is doing is to look at the area of research and data services. Data is critical. Madam mentioned earlier on that we have 3.2 million vehicles.
Right.
If you look at the write-off rate, every year in Ghana we have we experience road traffic crashes in excess of 30,000, 40,000. If you visit the average police station across the country, some of these crashes you see, you will not expect these vehicles to come back on the roads. So the write-off rate annually, which is give and take plus or minus 10% plus or minus 2.
Right.
Okay, so this has an impact on the vehicle population, the distribution that we're talking about. So if that is the case, then we have to begin to look at a policy with respect to replacement, fleet replacement. How can we ensure that the diesel, the petrol fleet that we are losing in significant proportions every year, that partners like ECOBANK and others will not replace with the same stock? Then we are moving in that direction.
Right.
And then also ensuring that we have smart systems in the research and data services that will support ministries' decision making, especially with regard to electric mobility, with regard to especially also again on non-motorized transport.
Right.
You want to look at mass transit, for example, where we are looking at the buses, 30, 40 capacity and beyond. These present a different challenge on its own than the regular taxi saloon car systems. If you visit some private vehicle testing stations, and then you have a bus as big as the STCs, the VIPs, these buses cannot get into some of these stations, which means that we have to have adequate smart infrastructure across the country that will provide for the testing of these vehicles. On top of that is the data that we build on it, the intelligence. The intelligence is supposed to ensure that when we come up with any new policy following the National Electric Vehicle Policy, that policy responds to data, responds to the insights that we're beginning to witness and observe in the road transport space. The thing we have to do moving forward is a close collaboration with our partners, EPA, the police, etc., and in providing for capacity. So if a police should stop an electric vehicle right now, what should they look out for? What shouldn't they look out for? And the drivers behind these vehicles also, because there's a science behind some of these things. If you visit some of the countries, some electric vehicles don't have any sound at all. And so when they are approaching pedestrian stops or heavily populated areas, how do they, inform pedestrians that a vehicle is approaching? If we have to use horns and sirens, etc., then EPA again will come back with standards about noise pollution, etc. So do we have standards around these vehicles, especially when they have to interact with non-motorized transport? All of these consultations must happen now so that we can see the realistic implementation of the EV policy. And then, of course, the area around continuous public education. we have to carry the public along. And as DVLA, as the Ministry of Transport, this is something we do all the time. Our collaboration with the media, in letting the media know that there's a policy shift from the traditional, ICE engines into the EVs.
Right.
The media has to know.
Absolutely.
This is one of the reasons we can have a very successful transition from the current system into the new space we are going into. And then DVLA itself, our technical staff.
Right.
Madam mentioned yesterday and again today how we are training our own to get us ready for that. Some of my colleagues are here. And one of the things we are looking at is that transition itself. When you get into some places in Ghana, when you talk about somebody who is an engineer, most of the time, 95% of the time, they look at the metal person, someone who deals with metals. But today, when you talk about an engineer, you're looking beyond that. You're looking at AI, you're looking at the Internet of Things, etc. How DVLA's own technical staff, my colleague is here, he's the head of vehicle inspection and registration. How people like him, myself, and other people can transition into this space so that we can provide the necessary implementation of the regulations and then support to the ministry for public policy formulation.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Mr. Abraham Zatu. I said I was going to be the last, but this is the final last. I looked into the eyes of the minister, and the minister gave me an eye. I think he says you've had to get your ticket and fly here and get some accommodation and things, and so you spent a lot. So tell us, if we return to Ghana, why should we come and sign up with ECOBANK?
I think.
Okay. Thank you. I think the journey is in two ways, right? Today, we need to be efficient in moving away from the disaster zones by way of transport. Equally, we need to be efficient at moving towards our points of need to be able to carry out our daily activities. I would say on this journey, we would invite collaboration, from our partners. NDA is here. We will need to have a country program for financing EVs across the country. And with that, we will need to then be able to unlock sufficient concessional and affordable financing to be able to go on this journey. And that is the commitment of the bank to avail itself for partnership, avail itself to stay with the ministry in this journey for the ultimate good of the country and the world. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Kingsley Addo. He is the head of SMEs at ECOBANK Ghana. And indeed, Mr. Abraham Zato, the Deputy Director, Driver and Vehicle Licensing Authority. We thank you so much. You can take your seats. We're grateful to you for this particular wonderful session. We are moving on to the green shipping session, ladies and gentlemen. And it gives me pleasure, without much ado, to invite... well, I think here too would have the minister say a few words. Yes, green shipping. Honorable, are you coming? Yeah, thank you, sir. Okay, so I will invite the panel members for this particular segment. First is my own boss, Captain Daniel Korte, Deputy Harbour Master, Port of Tema. Captain is here. Let's give him a round of applause. And then we also have Mr. Bashiruddin Haki, who is a Principal Freight and Logistics Officer, Ghana Shippers Authority, my own brother Haki. Let's give it up for him, ladies and gentlemen. And then we also have Mr. Emmanuel Awuni, who is a Senior Maritime Admin Officer at the Ghana Maritime Authority. Let's give it up for him, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. Again, this panel will explore national experiences in mitigation actions in the shipping industry, and the discussion will cover challenges, opportunities, and as usual experiences in advancing decarbonization of the maritime sector. To wit, that's green shipping. So let me begin with my own boss from the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, Captain Daniel Korte, and ask you to tell us in broad terms what is driving the transformation. Okay, all right. I beg your pardon. I think that we would have to take a small overview on green shipping from the Ghana Maritime Authority, and that will set the tone for this particular panel discussion. Thank you very much indeed. So, gentlemen, I think you'd have to sit. Okay, all right. Remain in your seats here, sure. Thank you very much, Mr. Awuni.
Good afternoon. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Minister for Transport, Honorable Koku Ofori Esiama. Okay. Management and board of Ghana Maritime Authority, especially my boss, Deputy Director General in charge of Finance and Administration, for giving me this opportunity. Okay. We have a brief presentation on green shipping. Oh. Okay. Okay. So, climate change in Africa. I have 7 minutes, so I have to be very brief. Africa, despite its low contribution to greenhouse gas emission and global warming, remains the most vulnerable continent under all climate scenarios above 1 to 5 degrees Celsius. Africa faces exponential collateral damage, posing systematic risk to its economies, infrastructure, investment, water, and food system, public health, agriculture, and livelihood, threatening to undo its modest development gains in shape into higher levels of poverty. Okay, so what's green shipping? Green shipping is when people or goods are transported through ships using minimum resources and energy as possible to protect the environment from the pollutant generated by the ships. Green shipping promotes cleaner practice to enforce emissions control, efficient port management, and equipment management. It requires a huge effort from every element of the industry, such as the maritime regulators, port authority, ship companies, owners, agents, and other stakeholders. Okay. Okay. All right. So now, Ghana Maritime, even though it's a state, works under the IMO. IMO is International Maritime Organization. So all our regulations and conventions, all our laws are being taken from the IMO. So in promoting green shipping, we go by IMO conventions. And this IMO SOFA 2020 was for all ships to implement sulfur content to a 0.5% by 2020 January. IMO greenhouse strategies. These were the strategies put in place by IMO that by 2030 should reduce carbon intensity by at least 40%. Then by 2050, we should reduce by 50%. Enforcement through IMO convention, MAPO. The main convention of IMO that deals with green shipping is MAPO. MAPO simply means maritime pollution. It was put in place in 1973, and then it was improved upon on 1978, ratified by 105 states, which represent 97% of world tonnage. Okay. Next slide. Okay. So green shipping in Ghana. The Ghana Maritime Authority is the regulator of the maritime industry, presents Ghana at the International Maritime Organization, enforces International Maritime Convention ratified by Ghana, carries out its mandates in collaboration with other stakeholders, Ghana Ports Authority, EPA, the Ministry of Transport, Environment, and Ghana Navy. Ghana passed the Maritime Pollution Act in 2016, provides for the prevention, regulation, and control of pollution that may arise from maritime activities. Actions taken by Ghana in terms of green shipping. We organized a workshop on implementation of the requirement of MAPO Annex 6 and IMO sulfur content. This workshop was to sensitize all stakeholders in the oil industry, operators, managers, port authorities on the Annex 6 of MAPO and its sulfur content requirement. We also issue a maritime circular, notice 012 that was issued in 2019 following a resolution that adopted by the IMO Maritime Pollution Protection Committee regarding the effect date of implementation of the sulfur content. In 2022, we also issued another circular. This was to the owners, managers, operators, and other stakeholders. The prohibition of discharge of wastewater from open loop, exhaust, gas scrubbers in Ghana waters. And then recently, we organized a green shipping conference in collaboration with Denmark to sensitize people on the need for green shipping. Okay, so these are the outcomes that came out from the workshop that was organized. We are moving towards liquefied natural gas as alternative fuel option for ships. Slow steaming, utilize the full capacity of vessels, example, reducing empty containers, ballast water management, minimize number of ballast voyages, crew awareness and training, and then renewable energy. These are the challenges that we face. Lack of infrastructure. Countries that have infrastructure need to upgrade to their facility to meet the required standard. Financial constraint, lack of funding, little or training or skills to operate green shipping facility. Fuel will be very expensive. Okay, there were some few recommendations. Need to set a clear path of uncertainty to drive investment. Yeah, there's a light slide. More attention needs to be placed on access to funds for research and development, technical and operation capacity. Africa should clearly table its needs for consideration during negotiations to ensure equitable allocation and disbursement of resources for the execution of this agenda. Ghana should lead the effort in Africa to form public partnership like Denmark. More capacity training program in the field of technical and operation measures should be encouraged. Maritime education programs should be encouraged by the authority to provide requisite knowledge and skills for its staff towards greener economy. African maritime administrators should take critical notice of the upcoming meetings at the IMO to contribute to stronger and they review the initial greenhouse gas strategy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel Awuni. He is a Senior Maritime Administration Officer at the Ghana Maritime Authority for that overview. Indeed, we are now zooming into the panel discussion. To my extreme left is Mr. Abdul Haki Bashiruddin, who is a Principal Freight and Logistics Officer at the Ghana Shippers Authority. Next to him is Captain Daniel Korte. He is the Deputy Harbour Master, Port of Tema, with the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. And these are the three gentlemen we're going to be having the discussion with. And my question, which is the first one, is going to Captain Korte. Just to find out from you, we realize there's a lot of transformation going on in the ports of Tema and Takoradi, and we see the expansion drive. We see a lot of massive things happening there. The president has been there last year and this year, and just a couple of months, about a month ago, the president was in the port of Tema once again, and on the 14th, he's likely to be there again in December. We just want to find out from you, what are the factors driving this transformation of our ports?
Thank you. Honorable Minister, I want to stand on the existing protocols too. Thank you. As you are very much aware, 80% of international trade is being carried by shipping, which means ships has to carry this cargo. So if ships has to carry this cargo, they need ports and harbors. Now, if you look at Port of Takoradi, it was built somewhere in 1928 when ships were very small. Tema Port, 1962. Until quite recently, we never had ships with a size of over 300 meters. Just last March, MSC Irina was launched. 400 meters, which is the size of almost 4 football fields. So if you don't put in the infrastructure, the ships will not come to you. You go out of trade. Until 2020, the biggest or the deepest port bed we have in Tema was bed 2, which was 11.2 meters, and we're making about 270 meters of length. MPS T3, never mind. MPS T3 has almost about 1.4 kilometer length of quay wall, yes. And we are making almost 366 meters, drawing 15 meters of draft. We are connecting Asia and South America through Tema. By way of that, if we have not done that, we will not have been able to connect the 2 oceans, which means the cost of shipping is going to be very expensive, which you and me are not interested in. So we took advantage of economic of scale, innovative technology, and Internet of Things, good market research to do those things. So currently, as we speak, MPS Terminal 3 is edge. What is edge? Edge is meaning the place is using less energy. There is no fossil fuel operated cargo handling equipment in T3. It is pedestrian free. There is an allocation system. That means the truck driver just enters the terminal with just his thumbprint. The OCR cameras recognizes the car, allows it in entry by the boom barrel raising. He goes to where he's going to pick his container. The container is dropped. It passes through the export scanner and comes out. And it's one of the very few container terminals in the region that has an import scanner and an export scanner. There is no intrusive search. Nobody goes physically to say, I want to search this container, I want to search that container. Within 15, 20 minutes, the truck is out without any human intervention. There has not been any casualty in that place. And as we speak, all the trucks are ASET, they are green ready. The pilots are using portable devices, which makes decision-making very easy for them. They are not doing any trial and error sort of something because these are very huge ships in the range of 200,000 tons dead weight. So the least mistake you do and it sits, that means you are making your port very expensive for business and less intrusive. So with that, we have been able to capture the market within the region. And in Takoradi, currently as we speak, the dry bulk terminal is equally 60-meter depth. And very soon, maybe come January, the container terminal is also going to come on stream, and it's also fully digitalized. So that is where GPHA has come so far. Thank you.
Right. Okay, so I'll also stay with you a bit, Captain. And we are touted as the country with the ports that are most efficient in the West African sub-region. Is that really the case?
Yeah, that is really the case because at MPS T3, we made a record 111 moves per hour, which has never been done in the region. With a container traffic of about 4,800 TEUs in less than 27 hours, 26.8 hours. And that is a record we have.
All right. So when I come back to you, I'll be finding out from you the steps you are taking to ensure sustainable port operations. Okay. Okay, I could have told them, but Minister says I should tell you what is
Okay,
TEUs.
yeah, thank you.
Yes.
TEUs, no, mostly ships classed by volume. And the volume is, we use the mode of container shipping is by containers. So we have 20-footer containers and 40-footer containers. So when we say TEUs, we are talking about 20-footer equivalent units. So for example, MSC Irina has a capacity of 24,000 TEUs. And when it is stored from the keel to the topmost, it's about 26 feet deep. So if you don't have an STS gantry that has that reach, it cannot work in that container ship. And that's some of the challenges.
TEUs, okay, so 20 equivalent units.
Yes, that is
TEUs.
TEUs. 20
Awesome, all right.
equivalent units.
So I understand why the minister asked that question, because not all of us here are into the shipping industry, and so we may not be familiar with some of the terminologies in the industry. So we appreciate that, Honorable Minister. And Ghana Ports, we have a baby, that's the Iron Port program, which is live on Metro TV every Sunday. And we have a segment called the Phrase or Word of the Day, for that particular segment during the live broadcast. And that is to bring you words and phrases we use in the shipping industry, jargons we use in the shipping industry, so that you can appreciate them. So please, when you go back, always tune in. Sunday, 5:30, yours truly, you'll find me there bringing you some of these, pieces of information so that you can, get yourself acclimatized with our industry. Thank you very much indeed I hope there's no bill for me to pay. All right, so let me come to Mr. Haki, Bashiruddin, who's my brother. And find out from you, Ghana declared support for the Declaration on Zero Emissions Shipping by 2050, which was launched in the United Nations Climate Change, that is Conference 2021, that's COP26 in Glasgow. Now, how is the Ghana Shippers Authority being positioned to raise awareness among maritime industry players on the proposed tax?
The Honorable Minister of Transport, the Chief Executive and Deputy Director General of the Maritime Authority, Madam, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I think in 2019, as part of our preparations towards the implementation of the IMO sulfur cap regulations, the Shippers Authority, in collaboration with the Ghana Maritime Authority, developed.
Address your audience.
We developed.
Address your audience, please.
Thank you very much. We developed a stakeholder strategy document that allowed us to successfully implement the sulfur cap regulations. So basically what we did was to look at the technical and then the commercial implications of that regulation and its implementation in Ghana, and how that was likely to impact on shipping in the country. And I must say, but for that intervention, the implementation of the sulfur cap regulations wouldn't have been smooth as we have observed. It has been a seamless implementation with very little resistance, because we made it easy for all our stakeholders to be on board. We reach out to all the regulatory agencies that were to play a key role in the implementation, the trade groups, the trade associations. We engage all of them effectively, even with our shippers, that's the importers and exporters. We engage them across all the regions in this country. The Shippers Authority, we have a platform, a regional shipper committee platform that we set up across all the regions in the country. And part of the mandate of these committees is to look at some of these issues when they come up, so that it forms a basis for us to be able to educate and sensitize them. We intend to build on this strategy with a few modifications, especially on the issue of the carbon tax. Now, Honorable Minister, what is going to happen is that with the carbon tax implementation, it's going to bring about a number of issues that border on cost of trade and trade competitiveness. But this is essentially going to be a levy that will be imposed by shipping lines. It's not an imposition per se, but as part of the IMO initiative to ensure that the maritime industry contributes to climate action, we have agreed as member states to contribute by way of this carbon tax for climate mitigation and adaptation. Now, globally, the World Bank estimates that we're going to have about $50 to $60 billion annually being contributed from the maritime sector alone to support climate change action all over the world. Now, what this means is that this money somehow must come from somewhere. And with our experience and in the practice of shipping, you realize that it's the final consumer that often have to pay or bear the responsibility of paying this money eventually. So we anticipate that with the carbon tax imposition, we are likely to have issues with cost of trade, issues of trade competitiveness. So how do we, as a country, engage so that we're able to minimize also the impact that this levy is likely to have? So we anticipate that this strategy document will help us, together with our colleagues from the Port Authority, from the Ghana Maritime Authority, to ensure that we engage all the stakeholders along the maritime value chain so that we'll be able to have a seamless transition, as it were, so that we cannot be left behind as a country when it comes to the IMO initiative to transition into green shipping. Thank you very much.
When do you intend to have these engagements with the stakeholders?
In fact, I must say that this year, we held a forum, a maritime stakeholders forum in Takoradi. The focus was to see how we can position Takoradi to more or less increase the maritime traffic in Takoradi.
Right.
Currently, there's not much traffic coming to Takoradi because of the orientation of Takoradi
As an
from
export-driven port.
yes.
Yeah.
Takoradi is now seeing a lot of investment. Hopefully next year, by the first quarter, we are likely to see the coming to stream the multipurpose terminal, container terminal in Takoradi. So as part of that engagement, the issues of the carbon tax somehow were discussed because we are looking at cost.
Right.
And part of the cost architecture includes some of these charges that shipping lines necessarily would have to levy on cargo owners and also importers and exporters. So we are already beginning the conversation to ensure that we create a necessary maritime domain awareness to ensure that at least we have a lot of our stakeholders aware of what is coming. It allows them to plan and also allows us to engage effectively by way of feedback to ensure that we bring everybody on board.
Right.
Normally, with policies like this, it comes with shared responsibilities and obligations as well.
Yeah.
So it is important that all of us collectively play our role effectively to ensure that we transition smoothly. And for us at the Ghana Shippers Authority, we are key when it comes to cost and trade competitiveness.
Right.
Because we want to ensure that as much as we want to transition, we also want to ensure that we have sustainability for shipping businesses, for importers and exporters, and particularly so also for the economy. Once our trade becomes uncompetitive, it has negative implications also for our trade. So we need to be able to transition in such a way that we do not disturb the current arrangements that we have, so that we'll be able to support the system to ensure that we trade, but we trade in a more cost-effective and efficient way.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Haki Abdul Bashiruddin. Indeed, when I come back to you, I would like to find out from you whether you recommend a harmonized approach towards greening the shipping industry and why you think that is so. But now I'm going to Mr. Awini Emmanuel from the Ghana Maritime Authority and find out from the IMO's goal is to reduce the shipping industry's greenhouse gas emissions by at least 50% by the year 2050. You're aware of that? And the Ghana Maritime Authority, as a regulatory institution for the maritime sector, has played a key role in Ghana's infrastructure or transformative agenda. I just want to find out from you what strategies are being put in place by the GMA, the Ghana Maritime Authority, to ensure that Ghana meets these ambitions.
Yeah, thank you very much. As we saw from the presentation, Ghana Maritime, even though it's represent Ghana as a state, all our laws are derived from the IMO. So all the convention IMO has put in place, we take it, we come and implement it, domesticate it, and it becomes law.
Right.
So IMO as a body, in dealing with pollution, has put on strategies to cut down sulfur content
Yes.
by 40% in 2030, and then by 50% in 2050. So from the presentation, you saw that we've even implemented the 2020 cap by issuing circular to all the shipping industry, all stakeholders, to be aware of what has done. And then by 2022, we issue another circular about the waste scrubbing, leaving it into the sea. Yeah, indeed. Ghana Maritime Authority is very concerned about climate change. So we've put enough strategy and training for the last 2 or 3 years or so. We have been organizing in collaboration with Denmark. Ghana Maritime has been taking...
If you can speak up a bit, yes.
Indeed. For the last 2 or 3 years, there have been a consistent training for staff of Ghana Maritime Authority with collaboration with Denmark. So every now and then, you see a number of people going to Denmark to have training on climate change. So these are some of the things we are planning. Then we are also organizing workshops to enlighten a lot of stakeholders on what is happening and what we intend to do. Climate change has been a problem for the maritime industry. Example is now it's affecting our fish stocks now. So it has caused a lot of low catch as at now because of the change in temperature of the sea. Yeah. So it has made some of the species in the sea are not able to withstand some temperatures. So because of that, they are moving and it's causing a whole lot of disruption.
They are migrating.
Yes, migrating. And this have caused a lot of problems. And leading onto economic challenges. Because if the fisherman goes and he doesn't get enough fish to come, the fish market women are not able to buy.
That's true.
Fishmongers are not able to get. And the long effect, there's no money.
Absolutely. That's true.
Secondly, when these chemicals mix together and gets into the atmosphere and form acid rain, it causes a lot of havoc into the system. You know, in Ghana, a lot of people drink rainwater, which is very harmful. Also, our agriculture sector will be affected because of acid that is using to irrigate the farm. Aside that, even our houses, our painting and everything. So we have taken these things seriously. That's why now and then training are being organized. But we still need more support to organize more training for staff and stakeholders to move forward with the green shipping.
All right. Thank you very much. Let me come to Captain Korte once again and find out from you. You alluded to the fact that, yes, our ports in Ghana have been described as the most efficient in the West African sub-region. I just want to find out from you some of the steps GPH is taking to ensure sustainable port operations.
Thank you. I think we are not operating in a vacuum. We operate in an international community, so we do a lot of collaborations. We are collaborating with the International Association of Ports and Harbors, of which we are a member, the Ports Management of West and Central Africa, of which we are a member, some donor countries like Denmark, Sweden, Finland, and other trainings, and we have professionals within the industry. Currently, as we speak, the Port Authority is integrated management certified. We are hooked up to the quality management system, which has helped us to digitalize the ports of both Tema and Takoradi. We are hooked up to 14,001, which is an environmental management system. We are on 45,001, which is an occupational health and safety management system. And currently, we are hooked up on 27,001, which is information security. because we have a lot of stakeholder data with us. So if we don't ensure the confidence of the stakeholders that their data, their biometrics, which are with us, are safe, they will never be doing business with us. Last week, we had a survey with the Department of Trade UK because some UK ships visit our ports. So they want to ensure that their ships safe in our ports. So we do the security survey, and they were shocked to see that we have over 600 CCTV cameras, both in T3 and the old ports. And we have 4 sophisticated control towers. So they were like, wow, we don't even have this. And they say, well, for us, it is necessary. All our craft are green ready because look, these are ships. There is a possibility of accidents happening. When this accident happening, these ships are going to lose the oil into the harbor basin. All the 10 tugs that we have are oil spill ready. Each of them have almost about 300 meters of boom. So when this oil spills, we are able to contain it, and all our equipment are part of the national oil spill contingency in country. Apart from that, we do a lot of trainings. We send people out to see best practices. As we speak, some people are just returning from China to see how this EEE and the ULCCs are being handled. So that in case something happens, it is not that you are going to do trial and error. You have already the confidence of the stakeholder that, look, you are capable of doing this. As we speak, all the air conditions of the authority have been changed to environmentally friendly ones, and they have motion sensors. So for occupancy control, if you are not there, the ACs goes off, just to ensure that the power consumption is reduced. We have something that we call cold ironing. When ships are in port, for sure, they will need power. So if there is no other alternative for them, they will continue to use the fossil fuel in the port, which we are trying to avoid. So for us, being the landlord, we have tried till now about 60% of our ships or tugboats or craft that we use, 60% of them are cold iron. What is cold ironing? When they are in port and they are not operating, their engines are shut off, and we give them shore power, electric power. We will need to expand the capacity of our shore stations. So by 2025, as we speak, we are in the process of upgrading our power stations so that by 2025, we, the Port Authority, will have 100% cold ironing. Then by 2030, Key 1 will have for ships sitting in Key 1. By 2035, Key 2 will have for ships sitting in the whole of the whole port. Then MPS is rolled on. Because MPS are bigger ships, they use cleaner fuels than the older ships. For the past two years till now, from 2020 till now, over 5,000 ships have been fitted with scrubbers. What are scrubbers? Scrubbers are equipment fitted on ships that controls the exhaust emissions so that the nitrogen oxide, the sulfur oxide, and all those things that pollute the environment are cleaned as they pass through the scrubber. So these are some of the things we have put in place to ensure that we are having a really environmental friendly operations.
I was nodding my head, and Madam is asking me, he thinks I'm giving home support to Doctor, to Captain by nodding all this while. But I think that I was assimilating the points he was making. Thank you very much indeed, Captain Delacote. I think that I would want to conclude with you so that I wouldn't come to you, and then Mr. Bashiruddin will have the last laugh, and then we'll wrap up for this segment. I just want to find out from you, Captain, whether you would recommend, I beg your pardon, a harmonized approach towards green shipping. What do you think we should be doing to decarbonize the shipping sector?
Yes, I think I will support that, and we have been supporting that. As my fellow brothers spoke about, we have a collaboration with Denmark. And through that collaboration, a lot has gone in to the extent that in the port, all our lighting systems have been changed from the old type of lighting system to LED effective lights. Offices even have motion sensors, so that if the office is not occupied, and for any reason you forget to switch off your light, it goes off as you walk away and closes the door after a little while. We have planted over 4,000 trees in the past 2 years. The ESA we did for the Terminal 3 show that, look, turtle, the green turtle is being extinguished, and it is something that needs to be protected. So as we speak, we have harvested over 200,000 turtle eggs, and we have released into the ecosystem over 100,000 of turtles, just to ensure the economic sustainability of the environment that we operate in. We have sunk a lot of boreholes to ensure that communities with deprived good water can have access to good water. We have paid for the services of people who could not pay for their health services. The Port Authority has its own health service facilities. Based on that same concept, we built the International Maritime Hospital, which is one of the specialist referral centers in the whole of the West and Central African region. I can speak and speak and speak and speak, but seriously, the Port Authority is doing a lot to ensure that we are operating in an environmentally sustainable, and so that at least we'll have the confidence of our stakeholders for them to do business with us, and also to tie into the vision of the president and the country at large.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Captain Daniel Kote. You would have the last laugh, Mr. Bashiruddin Abdul Haki, and I'll ask you the same question, whether you recommend a harmonized approach towards greening the shipping industry, and why?
Thank you very much. I think it's an imperative that we collaborate. And this collaboration is going to be intersectorial and interagency as well. I think one of the issues, maybe I should inform the Honorable Minister, that he is going to face is that greening shipping is very costly. All of the beautiful initiatives my senior colleague mentioned the port is doing is at a certain cost. Somebody must pay for it. So we at the Ghana Shippers Authority, we are seeing that we are going to have to do what we call address the maritime sustainability puzzle.
Right.
How do we achieve greening our shipping while at the same time, as I alluded to earlier, ensure that we have a cost-effective and competitive trade?
Right.
All of these green initiatives, whether by the port, by shipping lines and other shipping service providers, are going to be paid for. And it is cargo owners that are going to pay for it. And what will be the implication for the final prices of goods at the market?
Right.
The woman in Makola really will not pay attention to the fact that, oh, he is shipping at a little higher cost because he needs to contribute to climate action. No, he will not understand that. So that then requires that all of us as key stakeholders must work together and ensure that we bring everybody on board. And that is, for us, Ghana Shippers Authority, key. And that is why we believe going forward, we need to work closely with GMA and the Port Authority so that we can manage the transition in such a way that we can also contain the cost that is going to come with it, so that we can have a way of balancing it, so that as we move along, we'll ensure that we achieve sustainability, at the same time promote trade, and make sure that our trade cost does not become a barrier to us in terms of our competitiveness. So collaboration is going to be very key, and I think that is an imperative. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bashiruddin Abdul Haki from the Ghana Shippers Authority. He's the Principal Freight and Logistics Officer. Let's give it up for him, ladies and gentlemen. Let's also give it up for Captain Daniel Kote, Deputy Harbour Master Port of Tema, and indeed Mr. Emmanuel Awuni, who is a Senior Maritime Administrative Officer at the Ghana Maritime Authority. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for obliging us and for coming. I would like, with due respect, to acknowledge the presence of the Honorable Minister for Energy, the Honorable Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, and indeed his Deputy, Honorable Herbert Krapper, who is also here. Let's give it up for them, ladies and gentlemen. I think that Haki summed it up very well when he said that there needs to be some collaborative efforts in our quest to stem this tide of climate change, and that is why we have this multiplicity of sectors coming together at COP28 to ensure that we put our case forward and to show the world that we are really prepared as a country to contribute our quota to ensuring the end of climate change. And you saw the slides that Madam put forward, the timelines and all that are there. And so if we all play by them, I'm sure that we shall be getting somewhere by the time that we have decided that we really want to get there. Let's all play our part. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll see you some other time. Okay. So I think there will be a group picture with the leadership here. Captain, maybe, yes, Mr. Zatu, and then the panelists, Mr. Zatu, and then yeah. One of your phones. Okay, who announced? Yes, sir. Yes, the Honorable Minister for Energy. The Deputy should also join, Mr. Crapper. Honorable Crapper, yes.